السلام علیکم، ویری گڈ ایوننگ ٹو آل آف یو. آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں پسے پردہ اور میں ہوں نادیہ نقی. ہماری ڈومیسٹک پالیٹکس کے اندر جو کچھ ہو رہا ہے وہ تو ہم کور کرتے ہی آئے ہیں، لیکن جو سب سے اچھا کام اس وقت ہو رہا ہے وہ ہے اس ڈیلیگیشن کا دورہ پاکستان میں، افغان ڈیلیگیشن کا دورہ جو کہ آیا ہے. ڈاکٹر عبداللہ چیئرمین ہے افغان مفاہمتی راہی میں یہ 3 روزہ دورہ جو پرائم منسٹر عمران خان کی دعوت پر ہوا، اور اس کا مقصد یہی ہے کہ پیس پروسیس کے حوالے سے ویوز ایکسچینج کیے جا سکے، بائی لیٹرل جو ہمارے تعلقات ہیں افغانستان اور پاکستان کے درمیان ان کو مضبوط کیا جا سکے، اور جو پیس پروسیس کا راستہ ہے یا پیپل ٹو پیپل کانٹیکٹ ہے ان سب کو فروغ دیا جا سکے. قطر میں ہونے والے جو مذاکرات ہیں افغان حکومت اور طالبان کے درمیان، اس میں پاکستان حکومت نے، ہماری ملٹری لیڈرشپ نے جس طرح کا کردار ادا کیا، اس کا نہ صرف تعریف امریکہ نے کی بلکہ آج ڈاکٹر عبداللہ نے جو اپنا کی نوٹ ایڈریس دیا ہے انسٹیٹیوٹ آف اسٹریٹجک اسٹڈیز اسلام آباد میں، انہوں نے بھی اس کو سراہا. شاہ محمود قریشی صاحب کی بھی آج ملاقات ہوئی ہے فارن منسٹر کی، اور انہوں نے یہ کہا کہ ہم 1 انچ بھی پیچھے نہیں ہٹیں گے اس عمل کے لیے جتنا بھی ہمیں کردار ادا کرنا ہے. اینڈ وی آر گوئنگ ٹو بی آلویز دیئر بائی سائڈ آف افغانستان ٹو پروموٹ پیس، بیکاز افغانستان کا پیس پاکستان کا پیس ہے اور پورے ریجن کا پیس ہے. اگر ہم افغانستان کی اس امن عمل کی تاریخ کا ایک جائزہ لیں تو ظاہر ہے کہ بڑے مشکل حالات سے افغانستان گزرا ہے. اس امن کی خواہش کے لیے کئی مرتبہ بڑی کوششیں کی گئی ہیں، لیکن اس مرتبہ تمام میں کہوں گی عالمی دنیا کی نظریں بھی مرکوز ہیں ان ٹاکس کے اوپر جو کہ دوحہ میں اس وقت بھی جاری ہیں. اور گو کہ ہم یہ کہیں گے کہ ایک سلو پیس پروسیس ضرور ہے، لیکن آج ڈاکٹر عبداللہ نے یہ کہا کہ امن کا جو راستہ ہے یا مستقبل کا جو راستہ ہے وہ ضرور مشکل ہے، لیکن مل کر ساتھ چلنے میں ہی تمام چیزوں کو حل کیا جا سکتا ہے. پاکستان اور افغانستان کے برادرانہ تعلقات ہیں، یہ آج ان کا کہنا تھا. آج اسی حوالے سے ہم نے سوچا اس پیس پروسیس کے حوالے سے افغانستان اور پاکستان کے جو تعلقات ہیں، جو بائی لیٹرل ریلیشنز ہیں، اس کے حوالے سے ہم نے دعوت دی ہے. اسی ایک ہائی پاور ڈیلیگیشن میں ہمارے ساتھ تشریف فرما ہیں جو پاکستان تشریف لائے ہیں ڈاکٹر مجیب رحیمی. ہی از اے سینئر ایڈوائزر اینڈ ٹو ڈاکٹر عبداللہ اور ڈائریکٹر ہیں اسٹریٹجک کمیونیکیشنز کے. تھینک یو سو مچ فار گیونگ اس ٹائم. وی ویلکم یو ٹو پاکستان, all of you that are here, and we welcome you to News One on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And I am privileged and pleased to be in Pakistan and today in your program.
I'm sure this is not your first time, Dr. Mujib.
No, it's not my first time. I have spent years in Pakistan. I went to school and I went to university in Peshawar. I graduated from Peshawar University. I did my MA there. I have been in Pakistan. I have visited different cities of the country, and I'm familiar with the history, culture, and traditions and politics of Pakistan.
So which means that, you know, since you've visited the cities, you've had your schooling, you've been to the university, it shows how close ties Pakistan shares with Afghanistan. The people-to-people relationship, I think they really have history attached to it.
Of course, as you mentioned in your introduction, we are bound by history, culture, traditions, people-to-people contacts. We have a lot in common to share,
right.
And we have a lot to explore in future as well.
Okay, because اس فیوچر کو صحیح کرنے کے لیے وہ جو ایک پاکستان نے ایک سلسلہ شروع کیا with clear hearts, we are moving together, we are moving forward, and you must have seen the commitment by Pakistani government, the military leadership, which of course even Dr. Abdullah has praised regarding the Doha talks also, getting everybody on the table together. I would first talk about the peace process, but initially let's start with this the delegation that is here to visit Pakistan on the invitation of Prime Minister of Pakistan. How much importance do you attach to this tour of yours to Pakistan with regards to the peace process and exchanging views, the bilateral relations and people-to-people contact?
Pakistan is one of our neighbors. We attach a lot of importance to our relations with Pakistan because as it was stated yesterday, today, and also by the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation, peace and stability in Afghanistan means peace and stability in Pakistan. and in the wider region. It was important, it is important, and it will be important in the future to have good and brotherly relation with the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. There was an invitation for Dr. Abdullah when he was the chief executive, but he could not travel to Pakistan or visit Pakistan due to events in Afghanistan. Finally, he managed to have the visit right now, and it is happening, as you mentioned in your question, at a very crucial and important time while the talks are going on in Doha between Afghanistan and the Taliban movement. The messages we had from the leadership of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan since our arrival here is a positive message, very encouraging. They have assured us that they are supporting the peace process, they are supporting the government of Afghanistan, they are in favor of stability in the country. And that stability will open a new chapter of regional cooperation and prosperity, linking the South in Central Asia, and also resolving one of the major issues we have in the region, that is connectivity, and implementing some of the major economic projects in the region, such as TAPI and CASA 1000.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the peace process now. What do you see the future form of government in Kabul in the wake of power sharing? Do you believe it's going to be all democratic, or do you believe that there will be certain compromises on those ideals?
We are at the very preliminary stages of the talks. The first issue was either the two sides will meet, the talks will begin, or it will not.
Right.
It took us a lot of efforts and time to finally have the talks started in Doha on 12th of this month, which was attended by the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation, and there was a wide range of support. Of course, we had the national consensus supporting the peace talks, then it's followed by a regional consensus and an international one. Now the focus is on agreeing on the procedures, how to conduct the talks, how to go ahead. We are still focusing on this first step, which is agreeing on the procedures, formal procedures of the talks. Then the next step will be agreeing on the agenda, what items we have to discuss, what would be on the table between the two sides, or in front of the two sides to discuss them. I think it will begin with ceasefire, reduction in violence, and then we move on the issue of the political system. Maybe the next step will be the presence of the international forces in Afghanistan, and then the issue of reintegration, perhaps followed by aid and development programs in Afghanistan. So as far as is concerned with your particular question, I think it is, we are at the early stages. We are, all what I can say is that Afghanistan has changed. It is young, with a new generation, with forward-looking aspirations for better life for themselves, for the region, and for the next generations. We are used to a democratic system now. There are shortcomings, of course, flaws in the system, but it is fixing itself through practicing and consolidation throughout the process. We are committed to keep some of the achievements. We have them in the last 19 years, including the human rights, women's rights, and the free will of the people to decide their future to free, fair election. Those are some of the principles. I don't think we would compromise on them, but we are ready to talk, listen to the other side, and we are ready to have a comprehensive political settlement. And we understand that there is no military solution to this problem. We have to find a political settlement, and we are ready to accommodate the other side, and we have asked them to come to Afghanistan under a constitutional framework and fight for their ideas politically, rather than resorting to violence or using military means.
Okay, so you've really made it clear that that these are in the early stages, the talks, and on the other side you also talk about how the younger generation or how now Afghanistan is looking at. You believe in the democratic process. There might be some flaws. You're absolutely right on that. But believing in human rights, believing in women's rights, so one does get a considerable, a fairer idea what kind of government you're looking at. However, naturally, whatever both sides are going to decide, which you said is going to be better for the future of Afghanistan. So at this early stage, and with everything in mind, keeping the past history aside, looking forward towards the future, how optimistic are you with these talks, and also how much of a difference are you feeling now if you look at the stakeholders in the past of the 90s and compare them with now in 2000s, as in 2020, so to speak?
We fought for a long time. The understanding is that we have reached to a stage that all parties have realized that pursuing a military solution will not help the country and will not lead to a permanent solution and a better future for our country. In the past, there was a lot of regional differences on the peace process in Afghanistan. Our neighbors, they had their differences. Internationally, there were a lot of conflicting ideas on the peace process between United States, NATO members, and Russia and its allies.
Right.
But right now, the only major difference is that there is a consensus nationally, regionally, and internationally. And a good example is Pakistan's position, which insists on an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led peace process, and insisting that a peaceful, sovereign, democratic, and progressive Afghanistan is serving the national interest of Pakistan rather than the continuity of war and conflict. On the other hand, the majority of the people of Afghanistan are also supporting the process. There is nationally a consensus that we have to have a political settlement for the issue in front of us. There is no support for continuity of violence in war. But at the same time, we should not forget that we have used to a democratic system, to certain values. We are having free media in Afghanistan. Women are working there, doing schools, universities. I think one of, in the last week, we had university entrance exam, and girls are topped the exams, and it became very famous nationally, and also was reflected in the international media. So we have these achievements. We will not reverse back or surround to the backward ideology pursued by terrorist groups or radicals. That will not happen. We fought for these ideas. We have achieved this through sacrifices, nationally and internationally. So there will not be a setback, a reverse, which will impact, of course, the region, including Pakistan and all other neighbors.
Right.
But we are open. We are ready to talk and to have a rational resolution and an agreement which serves the interest of the country in the wider region.
So I have to take a break, Dr. Saab, but in a line, would you say it's not right now to give a timeline to these talks, because as you said, they are in the early stages, and it is a slow process that is going on?
Yes.
Okay, we are going to take a break. हमारी बात हो रही है डॉक्टर मुजीब रहीमी से, सीनियर एडवाइज़र हैं अफ़गान मफ़ाहमती काउंसिल के, सीनियर एडवाइज़र टू डॉक्टर अब्दुल्ला और डायरेक्टर हैं स्ट्रेटेजिक कम्युनिकेशन. हमारे साथ हैं जो अफ़गानिस्तान से एक हाई पावर डेलीगेशन आया है, हेडेड बाय डॉक्टर अब्दुल्ला, जो एक्सचेंज कर रहा है व्यूज़ ऑन द पीस प्रोसेस, बायलैटरल रिलेशंस एंड पीपल टू पीपल कॉन्टैक्ट. We have a lot to say, a lot to talk about, लेकिन एक छोटी सी ब्रेक ले लेते हैं. ब्रेक से वापस आकर हम इनसे बात करेंगे, और जो बायलैटरल रिलेशंस हैं, जो उन्होंने बात की कि बहुत सारी ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिसमें अफ़गानिस्तान अब आगे किया है, वो अब रिवर्स में नहीं जा सकता. That is very clear. फ्रॉम द अफगान साइड। तो जो भी टॉक्स हो रहे हैं वो अब फ्यूचर की तरफ हो रहे हैं। अफगानिस्तान में कोई भी शख्स ऐसा नहीं है जो इनको सपोर्ट नहीं कर रहा। इन टॉक्स को सारी पॉपुलेशन सपोर्ट करती है, लेकिन बहुत सारी ऐसे मामलात हैं जिनकी तरफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने भी इशारा किया है। उस पर आके बात करेंगे आफ्टर दिस शॉर्ट ब्रेक। वेलकम बैक। आज के इस प्रोग्राम में हमारे साथ हैं डॉक्टर मुजीब रहीमी, सीनियर एडवाइजर हैं टू डॉक्टर अब्दुल्ला एंड डायरेक्टर हैं स्ट्रेटेजिक कम्युनिकेशंस के अफगान मफाहमती काउंसिल के चेयरमैन, जो यहाँ पर आए हुए हैं और उनके साथ जो बहुत सारे सीनियर डेलीगेट्स हैं। आज उसी हवाले से हम बात कर रहे हैं। डॉक्टर साहब, ब्रेक से पहले आपने बहुत वाज़े तौर पर बताया कि रिवर्स गियर में तो बहुत मुश्किल है, अब वन हैज़ टू लुक फॉरवर्ड, और बहुत सारी ऐसे मामलात हैं जिनके ऊपर अभी इस वक्त बात हो रही है। अर्ली स्टेजेस में आपने कहा कि जो पीस प्रोसेस की टॉक्स हैं, वन थिंग दैट यू हैड सेड वाज कि देयर इज़ नो सपोर्ट फॉर एनी वायलेंस। आई मीन द रेडिकल व्यूज़ और वायलेंस, इस पर बिल्कुल बात नहीं होनी है, और जाहिर है कि अब आगे की तरफ देखना है, एंड देयर इज़ नॉट गोइंग टू बी अ कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ ऑन दैट। Having said that, Prime Minister of Pakistan also had, warned of the spoilers that might just spoil the peace process, and they do it to achieve their geopolitical ends. It's not in the interest of peace and stability, not only for Afghanistan but also for the region. How do you look at these spoilers and this aspect? How do how do you decide, or how do you plan out to deal with these kind of aspects? And do you actually believe there are spoilers?
Afghanistan has been the victim of war and terrorism for a long time. We have suffered, we are suffering right now, and this continues for the last 40 years. Of course, everything is not happening for no reasons and without spoilers or elements supporting these terrorist groups or organizations inside Afghanistan and outside Afghanistan. All what we've been asking and all what we are insisting throughout this history is that this is not good for Afghanistan, this is not good for the region, and this is not good for the image of this region internationally. It harms us internally, regionally, and at the same time, it is damaging us internationally. This region should be an example of prosperity, cooperation, and regional connectivity rather than identified as a hub of terrorism and tensions. I do understand, we fully understand in Afghanistan that there are issues regionally between our neighboring countries or countries in the region. But we all along, and it is the policy of the current government of Afghanistan, and also is the policy of the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation, to ask for cooperation rather than tension. We are trying to turn Afghanistan into a hub or into a center for connectivity, cooperation, rather than a hub for tensions or indirect policies leading to conflict or confrontations. The way to resolve this is, according to as in Afghanistan, or from our perspective, is that nationally, at the first level, nationally, we are not supporting any spider who is working against peace. There is a strong unity among the people of Afghanistan supporting the peace process. And at the same time, there is a regional and also international support. Any country or any spider identified working against the peace process, that would be targeted regionally and internationally. And we hope that through this regional diplomacy of creating or gathering consensus, we will overcome this problem. His Excellency Dr. Abdullah will have a tour of the region. We will visit all neighboring countries, and then we'll be visiting some other countries with strong links to Afghanistan. To have this consensus, we would like to have all our neighbors and the regional countries supporting the Afghan peace process.
All right. Okay. One more thing I'd like to ask you would be that in the wake of a new government in America, because they're going to have their presidential elections in November, how hopeful you are they are going to be determined at this peace process for Afghanistan?
We are fully aware of that. Our relations with the United States is based on several treaties. We have a strategic partnership with the United States. We have a security agreement, bilateral security agreement with the United States. And also we have several bilateral strategic treaties with NATO members and Afghanistan's allies. We are hopeful that the election will not impact dramatically the US policies in Afghanistan, because it's based on the national interest and also on the realities and conditions on the ground. We are looking forward for a better outcome when it comes to US election in connection to Afghanistan.
All right. Let me just take a very short break. ब्रेक से जब वापस आएंगे तो डॉक्टर साहब से मजीद बात करेंगे पाकिस्तान अफगानिस्तान के जो दो तरफा ताल्लुकात हैं, जो ट्रेड के ताल्लुकात हैं, उसको कितना बूस्ट मिल सकता है और कितना ये जो विजिट है इस पर जाहिर है इस पर भी बात हुई है। फिर परसेप्शन के हवाले से हम ज़रूर बात करेंगे कि उसके लिए क्या करने की ज़रूरत है दोनों अतराफ में। लेट्स टेक अ ब्रेक। In conversation with Dr. Mujib Rahimi, Senior Advisor हैं Dr. Abdullah के, he is also the Director Strategic Communication अफगान मफाहमती काउंसिल से। डॉक्टर साहब, आपने अमेरिका के हवाले से बात की, मैं एक चीज़ ज़रूर जानना चाहूँगी कि how do you feel या in your view what impact can a hasty international withdrawal lead to?
We hope that will not happen. The United States agreement and all agreements we have with our NATO partners, they are condition-based. Even the agreement with the Taliban states clearly that the implementation of that agreement is condition-based. If the talks going well and if there is a political settlement, then the United States will consider withdrawing its forces from Pakistan. Of course, a hasty withdrawal without taking into account the realities and the conditions on the ground will have negative impacts. And we are happy to hear voices of support from our regional allies and regional countries, including the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, urging the United States and NATO allies to act responsibly when it comes to considering the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And when we talk about, because we were just talking about the peace process and so much there is to change and both countries need to work a lot, as Dr. Abdullah puts it in the morning as a statement कि ब्रादराना ताल्लुकात हैं अफगानिस्तान और पाकिस्तान के दरमियान. I'd like to know, how do you feel or how important do you feel it is to work on perceptions on both sides, and for that do you have any kind of model in mind जिसमें अफ़गानिस्तान के अवाम और पाकिस्तान के अवाम में आपस में ताल्लुकात बढ़ें और एक दूसरे के बारे में जो एक परसेप्शन है वो अब एक नया मैं कहूँगी एक नए तरीके से देखा जाए या नई आँख से इसको देखा जाए?
I'm very pleased that you have asked this question. I do understand and I do admit that there are some misperceptions, misunderstandings, and I'm fully aware of that as someone who lived and studied in Pakistan and went back to Afghanistan, worked here and now working in the government in Afghanistan. I do not have a specific model. There are these track two talks and connections between the two countries. They are regularly visiting each other, and I was happy that there was a proposal during this morning speech at the Institute of Strategic Studies in Islamabad, that there should be journalists from Pakistan in Kabul, bureaus. Right. They should have their offices based in Kabul, and also Afghan media should have their base in their offices in Islamabad to cover the events in two countries, connect them. It is the media which is giving shape to the public opinion. And there was promises that it is a positive move, and it was supported by Dr. Abdullah and also the foreign minister and the officials from Pakistan.
Right.
That there is no restriction to take this initiative. I do understand that there are people-to-people connection, a lot of communications going between the two countries. A lot of Afghans are living here as refugees. People are traveling to Pakistan all the time. But still, we need to work seriously on correcting some of these misunderstandings and misperceptions, and give clarity, and also bring to the fore the common bonds, culture, history, the common interests we have, and the benefits of a peaceful and also stable Afghanistan for Pakistan and for the wider region. The trouble we are having is these extremist groups, terrorist organizations, radicals, who have no mercies for the people of Afghanistan, for their own homeland. And the same applies when it comes to our neighboring countries. They are not the enemies of Afghanistan, but the enemies of the nation states and the stability of the region. We have to work on this collectively and with unanimous will and wise to move forward.
And indeed, media can play a lot better role, because this is how the communication can, clear minds and hearts. And you're absolutely right on that. You know, the historical ties that we all share, like yourself, you studied in Pakistan, and you've taken back a lot of memories, and school days and, college and university life is such that you really enjoy and have good memories. So I'm sure that, both sides are going to work on that. Having said that, the bilateral trade that we're talking about, and the foreign minister, Qureshi, also stressed on that. We need to look at those agreements again. So do you think opening of, various other points that are in the offing on the border, that will not only increase the trade, but will have a more positive impact?
Of course, I do agree with you. A lot is going on between the two countries, but we have to build up upon that, and we have to increase it. There were a lot of good news during this trip. We had the foreign minister, that the advisor of the Prime Minister on trade and investment, Mr. Abdurrazak Dawood, will travel soon to Afghanistan. And the special envoy of Afghan president for Pakistan is also accompanying us during this visit. During the talks, the bilateral talks at the foreign ministry and at different levels, the issue of trade and cooperation was discussed in details. There is a readiness, there is a willingness to increase the volume of trade between the two countries and ease some of the restrictions. There was a very, very positive and a good news for our delegation, especially for His Excellency Dr. Abdullah. During the meeting with the Speaker of the National Assembly, he announced kindly that Pakistan will ease restrictions on giving visas to Afghan citizens and provide new services. That is a huge issue for Afghanistan. If you come to Kabul and visit your embassy, you would see hundreds of people queuing for getting visa and submitting their applications. That begins from early morning and continues through the day. Now, the announcement would, and I was informed just a few minutes ago that the cabinet of Pakistan has approved this decision. All Afghan citizens will be entitled to have multiple visas. People who are coming to Pakistan, patients especially, and people with illnesses, they will get their visas upon arrival in the border. They do not have to queue and submit their applications. And there are many details in this. This will work at two levels: increase the level of trade between the two countries, and as we are standing right now, and at the same time, it will change or impact the public opinion positively toward the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, helping Afghanistan at this critical time. But of course, the next step is when we achieve peace and there is a political settlement, then this major hope all of us we have is the issue of connectivity linking South Asia to Central Asia.
in the political settlement and in the wake of peace, there's another need that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has been stressing, and that's regarding the return of the Afghan migrants to their homeland. What do you say on that?
It was also discussed during this trip. In our discussions at the beginning, we thanked the government and the people of Pakistan for hosting so generously millions of Afghan refugees for many years. And we also asked them that the Afghan refugees should be given the opportunity to return to their country voluntarily and based on their well-in condition. We have a Ministry of Refugees and Repatriation in Afghanistan. Sadly, we have a lot of internally displaced people in Afghanistan because of conflict in several parts of the country.
Right.
The government in that ministry is working tirelessly to prepare the ground and the condition for the return of Afghan refugees. I hope that the peace talks will have a positive impact on this issue and will facilitate the dignified return of our brothers and sisters back to Afghanistan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for being with us and for candidly answering all the questions that we had in our mind. We hope that, this shall open new avenues for both the countries on both sides in terms of, I'd say, people-of-people contact and bilateral trade. And as Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, had said today, that we stand by Afghanistan. We're not ready to even, reverse an inch also from this peace deal. So we hope all the best, and we feel that there is going to be finally peace there, political settlement there, which will definitely bring peace in the region. I hope that you have a great time. I know that there's a lot of exchange of views that you're having in various meetings. In the end, any message that you'd like to give to the Pakistani nation?
Program. I would like to thank the people of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan for inviting us in, for their warm welcome and hospitality. My message to all of them that they should support the peace process in Afghanistan. They should support the stable, democratic and sovereign Afghanistan. Afghanistan in peace will have a positive impact in the region and also in Pakistan. And my message to yourself and to all other colleagues in the media is that they should support the process and at the same time help in a positive way to connect the two countries and the two people in the region. And we have to fight together the threats and the terrorists and the extremists who are threatening our way of life and at the same time the stability of the entire region.
As you mentioned, Dr. Saab, the suggestions given today, even at the Institute of Strategic Studies, I'm sure you will work on that, and especially when we talk about media, when we talk about cooperation on both sides. We hope that's going to happen in the end. I'm sure because you've had good time over here, you spent a lot of time over here. आखिर में यही बता दें हमारे पाकिस्तानियों के लिए कौन सी ऐसी चीज़ है आपको पाकिस्तान की जो बहुत पसंद है and you were really looking forward कि आप यहाँ पर आएंगे और वो चीज़ या तो आप टेस्ट करेंगे या आप यहाँ चले जाएंगे.
You see, I have spent the best years of my life in Pakistan. It is a nostalgic memory.
Right.
All the time, before I departed Kabul, I wrote a piece on my Facebook that I wish a time comes that I get into my car with my wife and my children and travel freely to Peshawar, to Islamabad, to all cities of Pakistan. I meet my friends, I visit the places, I spend time, I have the taste of the food. I'm a big fan of Pakistani music, especially Ghazal. I'm a good fan of the late Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and the rest of the great musicians, and also the new musicians, Rahat Fateh Ali Sahib and the rest of them. So I have the opportunity to come here and attend the concert and enjoy your hospitality and the culture I'm quite familiar with.
All right. We hope for a better future, inshallah. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourself. And that's about it for today. Inshallah آپ لوگوں کی خدمت میں پھر حاضر ہوں گے. پاکستان اپنی پوری کمٹمنٹ کے ساتھ افغان جو پیس پروسیس ہے, جو امن عمل ہے, اس میں اپنا کردار ادا کر رہا ہے. گورنمنٹ آف پاکستان, ہماری ملٹری لیڈرشپ دونوں نے ان تک محنت کی ہے جو دوحہ ٹاکس کے لیے, جس کے لیے سراہا بھی گیا ہے. اور ابھی بھی ڈاکٹر عبداللہ اور ان کے ڈیلیگیٹس کو بلانے کا مقصد یہی تھا کہ ایک اچھا اوپن ایکسچینج آف ویوز ہو اس پورے پیس پروسیس کے حوالے سے, پاکستان اور افغانستان کے بائی لیٹرل ریلیشنز کے حوالے سے, ٹریڈ کے حوالے سے, تاکہ جیسے جیسے یہ پولیٹیکل سیٹلمنٹ ہو جاتی ہے, یہ پیس پروسیس کامیاب ہو جاتا ہے, تو یہ بہت امپورٹنٹ ہے افغانستان اور پاکستان کے لیے. جو پرسیپشنس ہیں دونوں اطراف میں, ان کو بھی کلیئرٹی کی بڑی ضرورت ہے, کیونکہ پاکستان ایک بڑے کلین ہارٹ کے ساتھ فارورڈ ہوا ہے اور سمجھتا ہے کہ جب تک افغانستان کے اندر پیس نہیں ہوگا, اس خطے میں امن جو ہے وہ نہیں آ سکتا. اسی کی طرف یہ مختلف کوششیں ہیں جو کی جا رہی ہیں. ہم امید کرتے ہیں کہ یہ سب کامیاب ہو جائیں. اجازت دیجیے, اللہ حافظ.